Good morning everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Auto-Enrolment, the ins and outs of new employers, phasing and automatic re-enrolment. We completed a sound check there 5 minutes ago with people who logged on early, so there's no sound issues, so let's get started. To introduce myself, I'm Karen Bennett. I'm the Marketing Manager here at BrightPay. Today's webinar has been designed to give you an insight into upcoming changes happening this year, including new employers, phasing and re-enrolment. Today's webinar is CPD accredited and you can benefit from 1.5 CPD points. If you would like a CPD cert, please fill in the survey at the end of today's webinar and we will send you out your CPD cert within the next few days. We will have a questions and answers section at the very end. So if you do have any questions throughout, please type in your questions into the question tab on your control panel on the right hand side. We will endeavour to get through as many questions as possible, and if we miss your question at the end, we will get back to you on an individual basis. Today's webinar is being recorded. We will automatically send you a copy of the recording along with the slides in a follow-up email if you need to pop out or if you miss anything. So here is the agenda for today's webinar. Auto-enrolment, what's the point? Auto-enrolment in new employers, increasing minimum contributions or phasing, integration between payroll and pension providers, re-enrolment and re-declaration of compliance. We'll also take a look at how BrightPay automates auto-enrolment, and we'll also do an introduction to our new add-on BrightPay Connect. So auto-enrolment, what's the point? We'll keep this part brief as I'm sure you're all familiar with how auto-enrolment works at this stage. So in recent years, people are living longer in the UK and are healthier, and as a result are living longer. Currently, the majority of people in the UK are not saving enough for their retirement. The Pensions Regulator and the government have thus brought in automatic enrolment to tackle this very important issue. As a result, all employees aged between 22 and state pension age and who earn more than £10,000 must be enrolled into an automatic enrolment pension scheme by their employer. Employees who are not in this worker category have the option to join or opt in to the workplace pension scheme instead. Auto-enrolment has well and truly evolved since the rollout began in 2012. Last year, over 750,000 small and micro employers reached their staging date, making it the biggest year for auto-enrolment yet. Last year, we also saw the final stages of the rollout of the staging dates. There are a number of new changes coming within the next 12 months that payroll bureaus need to be aware of. So auto-enrolment and new employers. Since the rollout of auto-enrolment began in 2012, all employers have had a staging date which kickstarts their employer responsibilities. Perhaps one of the biggest changes for the year ahead is how new employers will handle auto-enrolment. Although the rollout of staging dates does not end until February 2018, so this month, from October last year, all new employers will be affected by auto-enrolment with immediate effect. Worryingly, according to research conducted by the Pensions Regulator, almost half of bookkeepers and accountants did not know that new employers would have auto-enrolment duties. So if a client becomes a new employer after the 1st of October 2017, they will not have a staging date. Instead, they will have a duties start date, which will kickstart their auto-enrolment duties. Your client should be ready to comply with their legal auto-enrolment duties as soon as the first employee begins employment, ranking equal to PAYE and NIC. Where your client is a new employer and about to employ someone for the first time, they will need to complete certain tasks in preparation for auto-enrolment. Once they have registered as an employer with HMRC, you or your client will need to inform the Pensions Regulator of the chosen point of contact for auto-enrolment. Just like when an employer reaches their staging date, the new employer will be required to choose a pension scheme that will be suitable to their business and their employees. On the first pay date after the duty start date, similar to staging, all employees must be assessed to determine whether or not they need to be automatically enrolled into a pension scheme. Any eligible employees must be automatically enrolled into a qualifying auto-enrolment pension scheme, where the employer must also make contributions to the pension pot. All employees must receive communications informing them of how auto-enrolment will affect them and what their rights are. So a very similar process to what you would have already completed at your staging date. So just for our CPD accreditation, we just have a quick poll to qualify for the CPD requirements. So a question here. As of the 1st of October 2017, when do new employers have auto-enrolment responsibilities? And if you could type your answer into your question tab on your control panel, please. So A, the employer will receive a staging date from the Pensions Regulator, or B, as soon as the first employee commences employment, or C, at the start of the next tax year. So A, B, or C, just into your question tab on your control panel. And we can see that 98% of you are paying attention there. So the answer is B, as soon as the first employee commences employment. So next up, we'll look at minimum contribution rates for auto-enrolment, which are set to increase this coming April. There are two stages to the increase in minimum contributions, which have been described as phasing. The first increase will take place this April and the second increase in April 2019. On the 6th of April 2018, the total minimum contribution will increase from 2% to 5%. Employers will need to contribute a minimum of 2%, with employees contributing the remaining 3%. Minimum contributions will undergo further increases in April 2019, with the total minimum contribution rate increasing to 8%, representing a 3% employer and 5% employee contribution. It is an employer's responsibility to make sure they are prepared for the new contribution levels. If the employer wishes, and of course they are very generous, they can decide to pay the total minimum contribution rate, which is 5% from April 2018 and 8% from April 2019. In these cases, the employee does not have to pay any contributions unless the rules of the pension scheme say otherwise. The employer and the employee can also choose to contribute a higher amount to the pension scheme if they wish. If an employer chooses to pay more than the employer minimum but less than the total minimum amount, then the employee must make up the difference. Your payroll software should easily and automatically calculate the phased increases for you. So it will be important that you check with your chosen pension scheme and payroll software to see if they can support the phased minimum rates. Pension providers should already be taking steps to ensure they can help their customers comply with the increased rates. If you are looking after auto-enrolment for your clients, it will be your responsibility to make sure that the correct amount of pension contributions is being deducted. Of course, it would be recommended that you inform your clients about the upcoming increases to prepare them. Now, there is no legal requirement to send communications to employees informing them of the increases. However, simple and clear communication will make it easier for your client staff to understand the phased contribution rates and hopefully reduce the number of opt-outs. New employers who reach their duty start date on or after the 6th of April 2018 will be immediately required to comply and implement the total minimum 5% contribution rate. Equally, new employers who reach their duty start date on or after the 6th of April 2019 will need to comply with the total minimum 8% contribution rate. So next we have a look at integration between payroll and pension systems. This year we will see an increasing number of key pension providers developing an API option that will allow payroll software to fully integrate with them. Certain pension providers, such as Nest, have made real headway in terms of automation. Direct API integration allows payroll software and the pension scheme to communicate or talk directly to each other, which is a very similar concept to RTI. API integration means that users no longer need to export and save the data file to their PC and then log into the pension provider's web portal to upload the pension data. Instead, data can be sent directly to the pension provider at the click of a button from within the payroll software itself. And I'm sure at this stage the majority of you have already used the Nest API with your payroll software, so you're familiar with the concept. So this method of sending information between two systems will be of particular interest to bureaus and accountants who have a large number of payroll clients. The integration will enable bureaus to reduce errors and minimise the time spent submitting their clients' data files to the pension provider each pay period. At the moment, BrightPay has API integration with Nest, Aviva and Smart Pension. I'm delighted to say that BrightPay is the very first payroll provider to offer API integration with Aviva to our customers. We also have further APIs with Nest to validate groups and payment sources and to approve contribution payments from within the software. This integration further streamlines the setup and ongoing tasks involved when using Nest as your pension provider. We will offer further API integrations with other pension providers this year. Currently, we are working with other pension providers, including the People's Pension, to offer this API facility. Now, just to note, the API integration that is available for pension providers is actually developed by the pension providers themselves, where the payroll software can then integrate or plug into their API facility. So it is up to the pension providers themselves to offer this facility where we can then plug into their system. So next up we have re-enrolment. Every 3 years, employers must put certain members of staff back into an auto-enrolment pension scheme, and this is called re-enrolment. Some of the larger companies have already gone through the re-enrolment process. Your duties will vary depending on whether you have staff to re-enroll. The first step is to choose your re-enrolment date, and this should be done as soon as possible. Your re-enrolment date is chosen by you with a 6-month window to choose from. Therefore, you may decide to align your re-enrolment date with other business processes, such as the start of your financial year or to avoid seasonal peaks. This re-enrolment window falls 3 months either side of the 3rd anniversary of your staging date. Regardless of whether or not you have used postponement at your staging date, re-enrolment occurs 3 years after your staging date and not your deferral date. The chosen re-enrolment date will apply to all staff. You can't use different dates for different members of staff or groups of staff. Also be aware that postponement cannot be used for re-enrolment. Once you reach your re-enrolment date, you will need to assess certain staff to work out if you need to put them back into your pension scheme. You only need to assess staff who have previously opted out or voluntarily ceased active membership of a qualifying scheme. You must determine whether these employees meet the criteria to be automatically re-enrolled. You must re-enroll anyone who left your auto-enrolment pension scheme more than 12 months before your re-enrolment date, is aged between 22 and state pension age, earns over the earnings threshold, which is currently £10,000 per annum. You also have the option to re-enroll various staff members, for example, directors, those who are a partner in a limited liability partnership, those who left the scheme within 12 months of your re-enrolment date, those who have given notice or have been given notice at the end of their employment. Having worked out which staff must be re-enrolled, you must now put them back into a pension scheme within 6 weeks of your re-enrolment date. It is your legal duty to write each member of staff you have re-enrolled into your pension scheme. This also must be completed within 6 weeks after your re-enrolment date. You do not have to write to staff that are not being put back into the pension scheme. All employers must complete the re-declaration of compliance even if you do not have staff to re-enroll into your pension scheme. This informs the Pensions Regulator that you've completed your automatic re-enrolment duties. So make sure that your chosen payroll software can handle the re-enrolment process and ensure there is no additional charge for auto-enrolment or re-enrolment functionality with your chosen payroll provider. So how BrightPay handles auto-enrolment. So for employers or accountants on their behalf, completing the upcoming auto-enrolment duties can seem like a lot of extra work. It can be especially daunting when there are so many changes coming within the next year, but fortunately it does not have to be as difficult as it seems with BrightPay. Now, it's not a legal requirement to use software to process auto-enrolment. However, both HMRC and the Pensions Regulator recommend that employers utilise payroll software that supports the process of auto-enrolment for new employers, phasing and re-enrolment, and also offer API integration with the main pension providers. Just to note, employers who continue to use HMRC's basic PAYE tools will be one of the most at-risk groups for auto-enrolment non-compliance, as the tool does not and will not properly support auto-enrolment. Assessing the workforce and calculating contributions manually will lead to an additional workload and a higher risk of non-compliance. So BrightPay allows bureaus to seamlessly process auto-enrolment with minimal workload requirement. At BrightPay, we are compatible with 18 pension providers and have direct API integration with 3 of those, Nest, Aviva and Smart Pension, so that users can drastically reduce their workload when it comes to sending their pension files directly through to the pension provider. We have recently added new functionality to cater for new employers and re-enrolment, and come the 6th of April 2018, BrightPay will seamlessly handle the increases for minimum contributions to ensure that you are fully compliant with the auto-enrolment legislation. So we're now going to take a few minutes to show you just how easy auto-enrolment can be with BrightPay. Today's demo is based on a new employer and will demonstrate how BrightPay can automate the entire process. I'll now hand you over to Vicky, who's joining me today. Vicky is one of our support managers, and she'll take you through a demo of BrightPay and what it'll look like. Thanks, okay. Vicky.
Thank you, Karen. Good morning, everybody. So as Karen has just mentioned, I'll just now show you, I suppose, an overview of how BrightPay works using a new employer. Okay, so I have the BrightPay software here on screen for you, and you can see I'm actually just starting in the current week, week 47 and month 11, so the month of February. So all my employees here have a starting date of the 19th of February. Okay, so I'm in the payroll utility at the moment. When I click into any of my employees, you can see that BrightPay has kicked in straight away to tell me that I may have automatic enrolment duties. It's detected that it's a new company, I'm processing payroll for the first time, and basically to act upon the message that's being given to me. So it's asking me just to confirm my status as an employer. So I'm just going to click on Enter Duties Start Date. This takes me through to a few options. So for example, if you're moving to BrightPay from another software and you've already staged a while back, we do have the option here to set that up here. So I've been employing staff since before October 2017. In my particular example today, I'd be choosing this option here. My first staff member started or will start on or after the 1st of October. And for any companies out there that are single director companies, for example, and that they are actually exempt from auto-enrolment, you can indicate that here as well. So I'm going to go into this second option because that applies to my company today. Okay, and it's telling me that my due to start date are when my first member of staff starts with me. So I'm going to save changes. This gives me a box here where I can fill in the start date of my staff members. So they've all started on the 19th of February. Okay, I'm going to save changes here. Okay, and you can see as well that as soon as I enter my due to start date, BrightPay will automatically put in the re-enrolment date for you. So we always do 3 years. based on your due to start date. As Karen has mentioned, that can be, you've got a 6-month window on that, so it can be 3 months before or after. So as the user, you can come in and change that date if required, but we do auto-populate it for you so that you don't miss it in 3 years' time when re-enrollment is due for you. Okay. So my due to start date is now entered. As Karen mentioned as well in her part of the presentation there, that you then need to then obviously have a scheme in place if you've got anybody to enrol. Once you've chosen your pension scheme, you can enter the details of the pension provider, staying in the pensions utility by clicking on Add New Scheme. So you'll see here that there is a listing here of 18 pension providers, and these 18 pension providers we work with, and it basically means that we can produce the relevant pension files that are needed for submission into each of the portals for each of those pension providers listed there. So basically you can do the whole process through BrightPay and let BrightPay create the pension files for you. Okay, I'll choose just Nest from the listing here because it's a popular one, so I'll just click into Nest. Okay, so you just enter the information we're asking you for. So for Nest, we just need your employer reference. All this information that you're filling in these screens is available from your pension provider, so it should be available to you somewhere. Okay, so I'm going to enter my employer reference. I'm just then going to click into the next tab. It's asking for my group information. So Nest operate using groups. So if you've got different categories of workers on different contribution rates, for example, they require different groups for those. So I'm just going to set up a group called Weekly here. On this screen as well, this is where you indicate the contribution type that you'll be operating. By default, we default to the use phased minimum contribution rate, so the 1% and 1% rate as it currently is, and then you'll then see that from the 6th of April it's going to go to 2% for the employer and 3% for the employee, and then we've got the April 2019 rates as well programmed in for you. You can choose a different option there if you want to operate different rates. You can go straight to using the 2019 rates. You can enter your own customized rates here, which allows you to type into the boxes yourself, or to use a fixed amount each pay period. So rather than a percentage, for you to use a fixed amount if that is how you would like to operate it. We also default as well to the standard qualifying earnings basis. Except, these are kind of a government kind of basis that's set each year, they're revised each year. So by default, we do have that in place. Again, however, if you're operating your pension scheme differently, you can customize these. For example, some people aren't using the limits, they're charging the pension contribution on the full pay of an employee. So you can come in here and remove limits, etc., or change these as required. Okay, so we'll keep it pretty standard here. So I'm going to use phase minimum and standard qualifying earnings. If you're with a pension provider that just requires you to separate your employees into different groups or categories based on contribution rates, then you can continue to add your further groups here. So I'll just set up a group, say, for my monthly staff. Okay, repeat the process here and save. Okay, and that's the details of my pension scheme set up. So back in my payroll utility, you can now see that now that I've entered my due to start date, my messages have changed now. So BrightPay now knows that my automatic enrolment duties have kicked in. So it's now assessing my workforce for me based on age and level of earnings. My first employee there, Jemima, she's been assessed now as an eligible job holder. And it's telling me now to click on View Options. So for this worker category, I can either go ahead and enroll her into my Nest pension scheme that I've set up. I can postpone, or I could mark her as exempt if that was applicable to her. So I'm going to enroll here. So my enrollment date is the 19th of February there. I'm going to click on my drop down and choose my weekly Nest scheme here. Okay. You then need to choose your tax relief method. So Nest is an example of a pension provider that they only operate relief at source or the alternative is none if the employee isn't entitled to tax relief. So by default, we have that set in for you. Okay. And if I'm now just to enroll that one employee, all I do here now is press continue. Or if you have a number of employees who are matching this above criteria, you can use the option to enroll multiple employers with the same settings. Select them all at the one time. I'm going to click Enroll Selected Employees here, and they are now all enrolled just with the click of one button for you. So batch processing is kind of speeds up the process for you. BrightPay will also do all the communications for you as well. So now that I've enrolled those 5 employees, I can now create the enrolment letter. So I'm going to click on letter here. You can print the letter, you can export it to PDF, you can email it directly to the employee. So as you wish, you've got those options available to you. If I just do a print preview of the letter for you, okay. So this is based on the Pensions Regulator's letter template. So all the content is there for you. It can't be changed, but it does cover everything you need there. Okay. So once happy with that, okay, I'm just going to cancel that. So once your employees are in receipt of their enrolment letters, you can then tell BrightPay that that has been done. So you're going to click on Mark as done. And again, you can do it at individual level, or if you've just done a batch run of your letters, you can mark as done for multiple employees, select everybody, continue. And when I return to my payroll screen, those 5 employees now, I've dealt with their automatic enrolment duties. Their flags have disappeared. Okay. Taking my second employee in my listing, Ronan, he's been assessed now as a non-eligible job holder. And if I click on view options here, there's 4 options for this worker category. So you have an obligation to write to a non-eligible job holder to inform them that they do have a right to opt into a pension scheme should they choose to do so. And again, we do that letter for you. The template is there. You can print it again, export email, and once done, you can mark it as done just to tell BrightPay that you've actually done it and not to keep reminding you that it's outstanding. Okay. My third employee is an entitled worker. And again, if I click on view options for this worker category, similar options to the non-eligible job holders. Again, you have the obligation to write to entitled workers. They have a right to join a pension scheme should they wish to do that. Then of course, then you have, if they do approach you and say, yes, I would like to join a pension scheme, you have the button there to put them into a scheme. And again, I suppose in all 3 worker categories, you can postpone your employees for up to 3 months or mark as exempt if that is applicable. So to postpone, I'm just going to click the postpone button. Okay. And I'll say that I'm going to postpone these employees up until the 1st of May. For example, with this being a new company, if people are in a probation period, you might have that in place where you don't want to enroll them straight away. You want to see if they're going to still be in employment at the end of their probation period. So you might just want to defer assessment to cover that period of time. Again, as with all kinds of options in BrightPay, you can do all these processes on using batch processing. So again, if I have a number of employees to postpone, I can do it all in one go here. I'll just select those 3. Okay. And again, BrightPay will do your postponement letters for you as well. Okay. So again, all you need to do is print it or email it as you desire. And then once the employees have received them, you can mark as done. Okay. And there we go. So all my flags have disappeared. So I have now dealt with the automatic enrolment duties in this first week of employment for my staff. Taking an employee who I did enroll, you can now see on their payslip that their pension contributions are flowing through now, the 1% and 1% here. And if I finalize this pay period as well, when I go to print the payslips or email them, the pension deductions will also be on the employee payslips as well for you. Okay. I finalized my first pay period now, and you'll now see that the number 2 has appeared next to my pensions heading. This is to now notify me that I have 2 pension files that need submitting to my pension provider. So I'm just going to click into this utility here. Pension providers all kind of work differently. Some pension providers just need one file submitting to them, others need two. And Nest is an example of a pension provider that needs two files submitting. First of all, if you enroll anybody, they need an enrolment file submitting to them. And then every pay period thereon, they require a contributions file submitting as well. So that's why I've got the number 2 showing here. So my first task is to send my enrolment summary to Nest, and I do that by clicking into the enrolment summary option here on the menu bar. Those are my 5 employees that I've enrolled, and I'm just going to click on Send Enrolment Submission here at the top. I'm in a test environment, so I'm just getting some errors here telling me that I haven't set up Nest correctly, so I'm just going to switch that off. And I just work through the steps. It's very, very seamless. So step 1, I select my employees. Step 2, just make sure everything is filled in. That's not actually needed in this particular example. Okay, so usually you don't have much to change at all. Okay, and at step 3, literally all you do is click on Send Now, and that will connect to the Nest portal via API. So it's a direct submission process, and Nest will receive that file. Okay. Obviously, I'm in a test environment, so I can't do that live for you, but what will happen then, as soon as Nest receive it successfully, this message at the top changes, and it will tell you that it has been successfully received. Okay. Also as well then, Nest require a contributions file to be submitted to them every pay period, obviously just to report the deductions that you've made from the employees, and also what the employer contribution is as well. And again, BrightPay will create this submission for you automatically. You just need to complete the steps to submit that to the pension provider. So again, it's very, very seamless. You're going to click on Send Submission. Okay. First time you do this, you might just need to fill in a little bit of information. I'm just going to put some dummy information in here. Okay. Click on Next. Step 2, select my employees. At step 3, if for whatever reason somebody hasn't made a contribution in the particular pay period you're submitting for, you just need to inform Nest of the reason why. For example, they could have left in that week, so there's no contributions to be made. Okay. Click on Next, and at step 4, you're submitting your contributions information to them. Okay, so again, just click on Send Now. And again, this message will update here opposite the week or month that you're submitting for to tell you that it has been successfully received. Okay. So returning to the payroll screen, going into the next pay period, so what BrightPay will do, it will continuously monitor your staff for you. So it's constantly looking at dates of birth and seeing if anybody's turned 22. It's looking at levels of pay. So for example, say Ronan Burton in this next pay period earns 500. You'll see straight away that BrightPay has detected that his earnings now make him an eligible job holder. And so I'm getting the prompt now that I should now be enrolling him into a scheme. So again, I would click on View Options and select the relevant one that I could enroll him up as SPON, for example, there as needed. Okay. Okay. Mentioned briefly there at the very start of this demonstration that sorry, I just pop back into pensions here, that your re-enrolment date will be filled in automatically for you based on your due to start date. Obviously, for a new employee, you've got nothing to worry about for 3 years. But what will happen after 3 years, if you're still with BrightPay and all the information is coming through from year to year, what will happen is that if this is a re-enrolment date, then the same flags that you're seeing appear, for a new employer with the due to start date, the same flags will appear for you. So BrightPay will automatically detect for you whether anybody has opted out or has ceased auto-enrollment membership 12 months, in that 12 months after, going back from your re-enrollment date. So it will automatically detect anybody for you and will flag them as well. Okay, so just make sure your re-enrollment date is entered there. Okay, so that just completes looking at new employers. I'm just going to go back to the presentation here because I just want to run through how BrightPay is going to handle phasing when the 18-19 software is released towards the end of March there. Okay, so I just have a few examples to show you on screen here. So just to demonstrate the phasing and how it's going to work. So here I have a print screen of month 12 in my 17-18 software, okay? And I finalized this pay period. Just going to look at 3 employees in this particular pay period. So if I take Benedict Taylor first of all, he's an example of an employee who has had the minimum phased contribution rates in operation. So he's currently got 1% and 1% in place. Okay. Casper, my next employee down, is an example of an employee. He has been contributing above the minimum 1% and 1%. He has been contributing 2%, and the employer has as well. So he's been above the required minimum at the moment. And if we just take a look at, Hayley, okay, in the 17-18 tax year, she has been contributing 5% and the employer has been matching this as well. Okay. So when BrightPay 18-19 is released, it's a brand new download. It's installed separately to the 17-18 software, and you will have an import button on the 18-19 software to bring all your employee information into the new tax year version. On doing so, when you click into month 1 of the new tax year, okay, if I select Benedict Taylor now, you'll see what's going to happen. So Benedict was an example of an employee. He finished the tax year on 1% on 1%. BrightPay could see that the kind of the phased minimum rates were in place for him. So BrightPay has automatically increased his rates to the new phased minimums, the phase 2 minimum rates of 3% employee and 2%. So you've nothing to worry about there. BrightPay is going to take care of that uplift for you. Okay. Casper he has a flag against his name, and that is notifying me that actually he was above the minimum contribution in 17-18, but on import into 18-19, he's now below the required minimum. Now, BrightPay doesn't want to assume that it's going to be, whether the employee is going to make up the difference to 5% to match the 5% or the employer. So we're leaving it up to the user to actually complete that task. We're giving you the alert that the pension contributions need to be looked at, but we're allowing you to make the change yourself. If you click on Fix, you have a few options here. So you can say that you want to apply the minimum employee-employer contribution rates, or to increase the employer contribution rate only. Okay, so if I choose to apply the minimum employee rates, that will uplift the employee to 3% and 2%. So you're now meeting the new requirements. Hayley, she was on 5% and 5% at the end of the 17-18 tax year. She's well above the new phase 2 minimum rates, so BrightPay is doing nothing. BrightPay is simply leaving her on 5% and 5% as well. So you've no flags for her. She's fine. She's meeting the requirements there. Okay. I just want to show you this slide as well, because the 3 examples I've just shown you, they are for employees who had percentage rates in operation. Some of you may be operating using fixed amounts. So what BrightPay will do in that first pay period of the new tax year, it will basically convert your fixed amounts in the background and see what the relevant percentage rates equate to. And if it detects that you're not meeting the new phased minimum rates, it will give you the flag and the yellow alert. So this particular example, the £40 and £30 isn't matching the 3%, 2%, or the 5% all together there. So again, I can click on Fix. Okay, choose one of these options as required. Okay, and if I need to just amend the fixed amounts accordingly, I can do. So I'm just increasing my employer contribution here, and I'm meeting the 5% requirement now. Okay, then when I finalize just month 1 and move into month 2, Any changes that you do implement in that first pay period will be remembered, okay? So you're only making those manual changes where you need to, just the once, and everything will hold in place for you. Okay, so that completes my part. I'm just going to pass you back to Karen now.
Thanks, Vicky. So as Vicky just went through in the demo, there's quite a few changes happening this year, but we've really tried to make it as easy as possible for our customers, to process any of those changes. If you are a BrightPay customer and you have any questions, you just go onto our website and you'll have the support line there that you can call, and our support will help you through any questions that you have. Okay, so I'm now just going to take you through a quick look at BrightPay Connect before we go to the questions and answers. So BrightPay Connect it's a handy tool to help communication between accountants, bookkeepers, your clients and their employees. It works alongside BrightPay that sits on your desktop. Payroll information is stored in the cloud and can be assessed online, but the payroll itself must be still processed on the existing BrightPay desktop application. The online functionality allows online access anywhere, anytime for accountants, employers and their employees. So secure online backup. BrightPay Connect automatically synchronizes and backs up data to the cloud, protecting you against ransomware and cyber attacks. It will automatically back up a payroll file every 15 minutes when open, and again when the payroll file is closed down. So, I've lost my mouse. A chronological history of backups will be maintained, which can be restored at any time. Your Bureau client dashboard. Accountants can give online access to clients' payroll information via the employer dashboard. Employers can log on any time to see and update payroll information, whether they process their payroll in-house or outsource it to you, their accountant. The online portal allows access to all of the employees' pay slips, your payroll reports, annual leave requests, amounts due to HMRC, and employee documents. Now we have an employee self-service portal where employees can access their self-service portal. So here you can see we have our pay slips. So I'm going to click on pay slips. Employees can view and download current and historic pay slips, P60s and P45s. Payslips are automatically added to the employee self-service portal each pay period, which eliminates the need to print or email payslips. The password-protected employee online portal will enable employees to easily submit holiday requests, and they can also view their leave taken and their leave remaining for the rest of the year, so it eliminates those queries. HR and annual leave management. Employers can view all upcoming leave in BrightPay Connect as company-wide calendar. Employers can authorize leave requests with changes automatically flowing back to the payroll software. So I'm just going to click on approve here for this employee leave. You can upload HR documents, including your employee contracts and handbooks. In this example here, the employer uploaded letters to employees informing them about the upcoming contribution increases. So that's a letter that's available on the Pensions Regulator's website, just to let employees know about the upcoming increases. So that's a very, very brief overview of what BrightPay Connect looks like. So today we gave you an introduction to BrightPay Payroll and BrightPay Connect, but we do run online demos every day, well almost every day, of both systems. The demos are free to attend and last approximately 20 minutes. So if you did want to attend any of those, you can simply book onto a demo. BrightPay's Bureau license costs $229 plus VAT per tax year, and that includes unlimited employers, unlimited employees, and free phone and email support. I suppose what's different about BrightPay, it also includes auto-enrollment functionality, CIS, a payroll journal export to accounting packages, the ability to batch send RTI submissions, and so much more. So if you did want more information, please sign up to an online demo. I'd also recommend that you sign up to our newsletter. GDPR is changing how we communicate with you. So after May 2018, we will not be able to email you about webinar events, special offers, legislation changes, other group products, and payroll-related news without you subscribing to our newsletter. Now, once you subscribe, you can unsubscribe anytime. So don't miss out and sign up to our newsletter today. As usual at this time of the year, we will be running a series of free CPD events on GDPR, employment law, and more news about auto-enrollment. So these events are available to register on our website. And as I said, we will be running more throughout the year. So if you did want to find out more, just simply sign up to our newsletter and you'll automatically receive an email invitation to those. So I'll just leave those events on screen there so you can just take a note of the dates, and we're just going to get set up here for our questions. And as I said, we're going to take as many questions as we can. I'm just conscious of, no, I think we're quite okay for the time. Okay, so just moving our questions a wee bit closer to us. Okay, so the first, I'm just going to read these out. So reapproving payments. Occasionally some payments have been missed by staff as there isn't a way to check via BrightPay that it's been submitted. Is this something that can be looked at in the future and show a payment submission report or a page of some sort?
Okay, yeah, no, it is a valid point. Anybody who's new to Nest is wondering what that question is about. With Nest, when you submit your contributions submissions to them, even though you're set up on direct debit, you actually still have to go in and trigger the make payment button with them. So you can either do that through your Nest portal, or we actually have an API in BrightPay that sends off an approved payment for Nest to go in and basically take your money from your bank account for the contributions. It's an API that's been given to us by Nest, but I completely agree sometimes it's very difficult to see clearly whether it's been accepted or not. So it is something that the developers are aware of, and if we can make it a bit more obvious and seamless for you, or even a way of checking kind of the logs in the background, we'll certainly do that. Yeah. Okay, so into the suggestions box that goes. Yeah.
With re-enrollment, will BrightPay prompt me, or will I have to remember the date?
Yeah, so hopefully just in the demo there you saw that happening. So as long as you have your re-enrollment date in, then yes, BrightPay will prompt you at the time. Now, we do have people that have actually reached re-enrollment now, and they've called us and they've said, I've no flags, but it's basically because there's nobody to re-enroll. They don't meet the criteria for re-enrollment. So don't panic too much. If you have reached re-enrollment, you can quickly check, everybody's status really. It's probably because they're either enrolled or they're just entitled workers still. So we'll flag where it needs to flag for you.
Perfect. Yeah, we really try to make it as easy as possible and tell you what you need to do when it comes to re-enrollment. But I suppose if you don't have anybody to re-enroll, you still need to do your re-declaration of compliance. Yeah. Okay. So next question, when do BrightPay expect integration with People's Pension, just like the Nest, I suppose, integration? I suppose it's difficult to say a timeline. I know both developers on both sides are in communications at the moment, and looking at all the file specs, and there's a lot of development work in the background. I suppose it's not just a simple enough process, but it is something that we're working on, and we're hoping just to push it through with the People's Pension as soon as possible. But I suppose if we just kind of say over the next coming months, we wouldn't have an exact date. Just sometimes things come up, like if we pass it back to the people's pension, they might need to iron out, or likewise they might need to pass something for us to have a look at, and then the developers then might need to do a little bit more work. But it is something that we're aiming to have in place as soon as possible, because a lot of our customers use the people's pension.
And as you say, we hate to promise a date and then it falls through for whatever reasons, but hopefully soon enough, that's all we can say. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
So next question. Okay, this is a bit of a long one. So to confirm, if it's a new employer, let's say first employee is eligible and starts on the 15th of the 5th, 2018, does the employer need to auto-enroll them from this date and deduct the relevant minimum contributions from the pay month ending the 31st of the 5th, 2018?
Okay. Yeah, so I know what the scenario is here, that sometimes, especially with monthly payrolls, payroll operators and employers like to kind of get ahead of themselves, and they're flagged at the beginning of the month that they're due for enrolment. So, you kind of say, I'll get going and I'll get the enrolment file in. What happens then is that sometimes the employee has received the welcome pack back from the pension provider. In that pack is how they can opt out, and the employee then decides to opt out. Yet the payroll operator has yet to finalise the pay period. So kind of everything's happened before a pay run has been done. Advice given to us from pension providers, especially with a monthly payroll, weekly isn't affected that much because by the time the packs have come out, a week has gone by. But what the pension providers have said to us, I know a couple of them have spoken to us directly, their advice is, wait until that pay week when you are paying them, so that it's not happening too soon. Especially with some of the pension providers some pension providers, now pensions, for example, they only require a contributions file, and that only gets created when you finalise the pay run. So some you can't do until the end of the month anyway, when your pay period is due for payment. So they do kind of advise, waiting until you're due to do the pay run.
Yeah, exactly.
Saying that, I mean, it's going to happen that an employee kind of is in it and then opts out before you've managed to do anything in your payroll. And yes, it can be reversed in BrightPay, it can be done. Okay,
thank you. So phasing. Sorry, this question.
I think it's just a question about the current phasing, that we've said it's 1% and 1%, and the attendee's just asking, wasn't it 2% for the employee? But no, it's currently 1% employee, 1% employer, 2% in total. Okay.
Okay. If, I think they're referring to employees, so if an employee is entitled but exempt due to earnings, can you just mark them as exempt?
Okay, we would recommend not marking them as exempt, because that kind of removes them from the assessment pot, as it were. If they, if an employee's been assessed as entitled simply because their earnings aren't high enough, your obligation is to provide them with a right to join letter, and then that's your duties complete. So, that's the kind of the step that you're going to complete. Then if in any particular pay period their pay does increase for any reason, they could trigger auto-enrolment. So that's why we would say don't mark them as exempt, because officially they're not exempt. They're just entitled workers. So I suppose exempt is really for single director companies, I think that the armed forces and things like that. There's a few kind of people that fall under the exempt category there.
Okay, let me see. Okay, the next question. I have a question with reference to logging into Connect. I have a few clients who I'm moving on to Connect in April. However, is there a dedicated web address for bureaus to advise their clients and their employees? Should they misplace the app from their phone?
Yes, there is. What we'll do actually, we'll email you that link. It's I just can't remember. It's like mypayroll.cloud or something. But what we'll do, we can email that on to you, Simon, after the webinar. But yes, that will give you the ability to log on online rather than through your phone there. Yeah.
And I suppose that with that, you know, when they get an email saying that their pay slips are available, there's the link there.
On there as well.
Yeah. So yeah, once, for example, if your pay slip is available for employees, they automatically get an email and they just log on from that email directly. So I suppose it's always quite available on the email side as well.
This one here. So let's just say that if you don't meet the criteria for auto-enrolment, you can still ask to join the scheme. What if a company with directors who do not wish to join and one part-time staff? So basically what we're saying here is that there's nobody eligible, there's nobody to go into the scheme. Do you still have to set up a scheme just in case they wish to join? It's recommended to have in mind a pension provider. So I suppose TPR's advice is always, do your homework a little bit just in case, you know, somebody suddenly decides, yeah, I do actually want to go in that scheme. So, you know, there's no requirement to have a scheme that you've signed up to, but I suppose just to have kind of maybe looked into a few, so you're not put under pressure basically, should it happen. So yeah, so that would be advice really for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're just ready to go if an employee decides to join or opt into the scheme. Okay, just have a look at the next question.
Yeah, if it is a relief at source scheme, does the minimum employee contribution reduce by the 20%? Yes, it does. So basically, I'm not sure if you saw the screen there when I was doing the demonstration, but Nest, for example, the one we were using this morning, is a relief at source scheme. So yes, the employee contribution is it's 8% of 1% currently, and it'll be then 8% of 3% in the new tax year when the rates go up. And HMRC then top up the other 20%. They give the pension provider that extra 20% then to make it a 1% contribution. Okay.
Okay, so the next question is in relation to Connect. So can an employer choose, one, whether or not to allow employees access their individual self-service portal? So yes, that's up to the employer if they wish not to allow their employees access the self-service portal, absolutely. It is, I suppose I'd recommend that it is quite beneficial to the employees, you know, in terms of submitting their holiday pay. A lot of employees would come to you kind of saying, can I have the last 6 months worth of pay slips as well? So all of their information is there. So it is a handy tool, and they can't edit any of their, I suppose, payroll information. So it is a handy tool. But if you so wish, yes, the employer can not allow access. And then the second part of that question is, what is the point of employee, what point employees' new document? At what point, or what is the point of employees' new document?
No, at what point are employees' new documents released to their self-service portal?
Okay.
I think you can specify when it goes live.
Yeah.
Basically for them, when you're uploading the documents, you can instruct it then when it's to become available.
Yeah. So just, I suppose the easiest thing is just when you want the employees to access it, just upload it. And with their payslips, they'll automatically receive a notification via email to say that their employee contract or handbook or whatever the documentation is now available for them to view. You do also have, I suppose, a viewing platform where you can see if the employee has viewed the particular document. Okay, so the next question.
Will BrightPay connect with Workers' Pension Trust? So Workers' Pension Trust is one of the 18 providers that we do work with. It's not an API submission though, so unlike Nest, which I showed you this morning, where it goes straight from BrightPay into the pension portal, with Workers' Pension Trust, we still do produce the proper pension file for you in the right format for you, but it's a CSV file. So what you would need to do when you're preparing the submission file through the utility in BrightPay, rather than the send now button, it's save CSV, and you save that CSV file to a location on your PC. You then log into your pension provider portal, in this case Workers' Pension Trust, and you upload that file. So it's a two-step process rather than a one-step process that an API gives you. Okay. And just to follow on, will an API key be issued with simply auto-enrolment? I haven't heard anything too much with them at the moment.
As I said on the presentation, it's up to the pension provider themselves to develop this API functionality. And I suppose once pension providers develop the API functionality, we'll prioritise that in order of how many customers that we have on that particular pension scheme. I know, for example, one of the smaller pension providers had developed an API, but I think only like 10 of our customers were using that as a workplace pension scheme. So the developers decided to prioritise other development work, where maybe we had 100 customers requesting something that was quite beneficial. So it comes through really from demand and when the pension provider themselves have developed that API. But for the moment, the next one that we're working on is the people's pension.
Okay. How will we know how much an employee has contributed to Nest over a period of time? Can Nest give us a pension statement for all the deductions made? So as far as I'm aware, I'd say most pension providers, if not all, I think, should send an end-of-year statement to their members, so similar to a P60 really, but it's a pension statement. So I'm sure Nest is one of them. If you want to just double check that with them, I think it is an annual statement that they send out to all their members there. Okay. Hi, I've got a client who started employing people from the 1st of September. Does it mean that they have a staging date on the 1st of January? Yes. 1st of September, I'm quite questioning myself now, but 1st of September is the 1st of January.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh yeah, for all the different.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
Exactly. I just don't have the software in front of me just to double check, but yes, no, that is correct. And what is the declaration deadline for employers after the 1st of October 2017? So if this is referring to the declaration of compliance, you've got 5 months to complete it after your duties start date there. So as soon as your duties kick in, you have 5 months after that. That's your deadline.
Okay. If an employee's pay makes them eligible for that month, but unlikely to happen again, can you postpone them having done that? What happens if the pay did go up again from the postponement point of view?
So basically, if somebody's pay is kind of low enough to not make them eligible, and then suddenly, it could be a bonus or they've done overtime or something, and then suddenly they've gone into the eligible job holder category. If it is kind of a temporary peak, you can of course use postponement, okay? And then you can postpone them for a period of time, and at that reassessment date, then their pay could be low enough again, okay? If then further down the line that happens again, you can re-postpone. But what you can't have is back-to-back postponements. So if somebody's assessed as an eligible job holder, you postpone them. Then on their deferral date, so their reassessment date at the end of the postponement period, that they're still being assessed as an eligible job holder at that point, you can't postpone, you have to enroll them at that point. So back-to-back postponements aren't allowed.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I suppose they do have the option to opt in or join even if you have used postponement. But I suppose a lot of people use that as an option, just if somebody's eligible over one monthly period. Okay.
Are you planning to have more payslip formats than the current ones? So we have no plans to bring in, currently we have our BrightPay template, and we also cater for an Iris payslip and Sage payslips, a couple of those. We're not planning on bringing any more in from other providers, but what you will get in the 18-19 software when we release it is a lot more options for the BrightPay payslip. So there'll be a lot more things you can add on. You'll have a lot more kind of control over what shows on the payslip. Obviously, mandatory items you can't remove, but we're actually providing a lot of kind of different options for kind of reformatting the BrightPay one, if that's of any help to you.
Okay, I'm just going down through some of the questions here.
Just go back. I think it was just
sorry.
It was just bear with us there. How can I resubmit a submission to Nest? Is that possible? If you haven't hit the Make Payment button in your Nest portal, or you haven't used the Approve Payments option, then that kind of contribution schedule that you're submitting for is still live and amendments can be made. So you have two options. If it's just for one employee, for example, that you need to make a change to, you can either log into your Nest portal, access the contributions section on there and manually type in your correction basically, or you can send a full submission again from BrightPay into Nest. So while that Make Payment button hasn't been hit, which in effect is closing that schedule down, you're saying it's done, but boom, no more corrections, possible, then yes, you can resubmit again. Okay. Let me just check. I think just a follow-on, so you can only postpone once. I'm not sure if I answered that before or after. We were talking about postponement, but you can only postpone once if there's back-to-back eligibility on an employee. So an employee is assessed as being an eligible job holder, you postpone them. Mm-hmm. At the deferral date, at the end of the postponement period, if that employee's pay and age obviously makes him an eligible job holder again, you have no choice but to enroll them. You can't postpone them again. Now, if at the end of the postponement period, when you're reassessing them, their pay has dropped again and they're either non-eligible or entitled, you just carry on. Obviously, you give them the relevant letter if you haven't done that already. Then say 2 or 3 weeks down the line, they have another peak in their pay and they become eligible again, you can postpone again because it hasn't been back to back.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps there. Okay. Just bear with us, we're just scrolling down there.
And I don't understand. Sorry, it's just a couple of questions.
Can you edit the letter template to incorporate logos and company details? I'm just wondering if you're referring just to the kind of the communication letters, is it, for auto-enrollment? But yes, you can. If I just bring up the software here, if it's still open here. I just go into this particular employee here and just bring up their letter. You have a few options here. So you can include your logo here. You can just position where the employer name and address displays, date display as well. There's not too much you can do because it's pretty much hard-coded into the software. But those that might just give you kind of the things that you can do there with regard to the communication letters. Okay, just seeing if we have anything else left.
No, I don't think so. No, okay.
Okay, yeah, I think we're done there. Sorry, we're just kind of looking through everything there. But yeah, I think that's everything.
So if there's, I suppose, as just to say again, if there was something that you did have a question on, whether you're using a trial of BrightPay or if you're a BrightPay customer on phasing new employers or re-enrollment, do give our support line a call and we'll endeavour to help you as much as possible with whatever the issue is. And of course, this webinar has been recorded, so a lot of the information might be a good idea just to go over it again. Okay.
I think that's everything in. So thank you very much, everybody.
Yes, thanks, Vicky, and thank you to Rachel, who's been working there on the technical side of things. Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.